guys, welcome back to another episode of the CDP Growth Show. On today's episode, I'm joined by Max, who is the current head of marketing at LandTech. Max, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Now, Max, before we kind of dive into the main part of the podcast, just give my audience like a really quick, 30-second rundown of, first of all, what LandTech is as a platform, and then really kind of who the platform serves.
All right. Our platform is one of a kind. It's allowing people to find opportunities to build property. So
Awesome.
It sounds very simple, but
Yeah.
it pulls together a lot of data sets that are very dispersed across the internet. Puts it on one platform, allows you to take a look at any piece of land and say, look, can I build something here or not? Using, legal frameworks, policy, government policy, comparables, and things like that. So it's primarily property developers, but anyone really in the property industry. Yeah, anyone can use it, but primarily anyone in property who's looking for a site to build on.
Makes sense. And how long have you been with LandTech now?
For almost 3 years now. I was one of the first people.
Oh, awesome. So you've been there pretty much since kind of day one.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And, something that I kind of really like asking my guests, just a bit of like a context question, right? Just to kind of let the audience know how you kind of, got into this crazy world of marketing, right? How did you kind of get your start in B2B SaaS?
I mean, it's a couple of different things, really. B2B SaaS is all about, I've had an interest with tech since I was a kid. I used to make my own computers, build my own computers,
Awesome. Yeah.
Did some maybe gray area hacking on my computer, stuff like that. I just
quite illegal.
love, playing around with software and hardware.
Yeah.
Especially, and there's so many old industries out there, especially property. So I spent a lot of my career in property and a lot of it in tech. And so it came kind of naturally, this interest in, applying tech to property, which is a very old-fashioned industry. So that's how I really got into the SaaS side of things. When it comes to marketing, I'm just really fascinated what makes people do things. It sounds so simple maybe, or maybe weird, but I just like understanding, like, what do people engage with,
Yeah, human behavior.
What copy, what visuals, what messaging makes people take an action. So that's always been a fascination of mine. I think marketing is the best place to look at those things. You can take a step back and look at, big picture data, at scale. You can experiment a lot and that way get insight. So that's kind of how I got into B2B SaaS marketing. It's a combination of those two interests, really.
Makes sense. Okay. And kind of what made you initially join LandTech? Was it just them two kind of passions that came together?
Yeah, it seemed like a natural next step. I also think their mission and vision really ties into my own. They want to stop the housing crisis, or at least alleviate it a little bit by finding more places we can build property. So right now we need more housing than ever, right? There's a lack of it. And our tool just allows you to find more places to build property, where it makes financial sense for the developer, but it also makes sense for society because there's a demand in certain areas. So that really pulled me in as well.
Makes sense. And obviously, given kind of the kind of theme of the podcast, right, being tech stacks and, building tech stacks and kind of getting that buy-in, I think something before we dive straight into the more, technical, what softwares have you got in place? I know you kind of mentioned prior to the podcast that you kind of like to touch on that. And I think it's a really important piece of actually getting that kind of internal buy-in, right, from certain stakeholders in the business, whether it's the CEO or the CFO, whoever is kind of going to be in charge of actually implementing these softwares. I'd really like to kind of hear your piece on how you kind of, since day one have been able to get that internal buy-in, from certain stakeholders around certain softwares, because I think it's where a lot of people, particularly people like yourself in kind of heads of marketing roles, they tend to trip up because they can't get certain softwares in place and it doesn't allow them to implement certain things. So just, kind of give me your piece on how you've been able to get that buy-in.
Yeah, I mean, I had trouble with that myself in the beginning. I learned the hard way, you learn more from your failures and all that. For me, it boils down to three things. You need to become the expert of the tech out there, and not just for marketing necessarily, also for other departments, if not all the departments, at least the commercial ones. So at least, customer success and sales, understand what their needs are. So also, like, just put your mind space in where they're at, what are they trying to achieve, And then finally bring the data, not just the ROI of the platforms, but any data you have around things that can validate that your solution to their problems is the right one. Bring that. That's how you're going to get buy-in. So, become the product solution expert or the solution expert, learn what their goals are, and just bring the data around that stuff as much as possible. That's worked really well for me, both at LandTech and other places. As soon as you start thinking about other people as your own people, if you will, or other departments and goals, like your own goals, you'll find that you get that alignment naturally. And in time, you build trust, so as you go on, you become that kind of tech stack leader, really.
So really kind of becoming that champion of certain softwares and really understanding how they're going to kind of match that long-term outcome of what you're trying to achieve as an entire business unit, right?
Become the trusted expert. And that's not just tech stack, right? That's any business decision, but especially tech stack, which right now I think is up for grabs. You have a lot of operation departments, they lead it for natural reasons. I think marketing can take more of a lead there, more from a commercial side of things, not just data integration, but more like, what does this mean for the customer experience? Because a lot of the time, both sales and CS have similar goals to marketing in terms of creating a good customer experience, because they know they're going to close more deals doing that. And they're going to win more clients. So, that's really key.
And really, just like you said, having that kind of full company alignment with whatever decision you're making, right? That's going to, like you said, benefit the customer, right? Yeah, completely agree. Now, I guess kind of, more kind of moving on to your tech stack and really, how you guys have structured that. I'd be really interested to hear kind of some of the key softwares, right, that you guys have put in place as a company, since day one, and kind of as you've grown, some of them kind of key softwares that have been kind of crucial, right, to LandTech's growth.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm a big Hubspot fanatic, but it's really a start for us. It's helped massively. We have continued to implement it more and more. And the platform itself has grown immensely in the last 3 years. It has a lot of enterprise features now as well. And I used to be concerned that we're going to have to move away from the platform at a certain point. They really dealt with a lot of those kind of enterprise feature requests that a lot of people have been asking for. So I'm quite confident that anyone who joins HubSpot now at an early stage as a lower tier plan will have the ability to grow with them. It just has all the data in one place. The integration on the platform is great. It's just you can get almost anything in there these days. More companies are even putting HubSpot before Salesforce these days for integrations.
Seen that a lot.
And we all know as marketers how important integrations are. Just the ability to get that in with ease. Not be dependent on a separate ops team or like extensive ops support. Allows you to move quicker. In terms of getting sign-off, it helps as well. So, HubSpot's been really key. It just has a lot of powerful tools, they're easy to grasp, and it allows you to, automate almost anything in a business once you become an expert of it. I'm a bit of a nerd myself, so maybe I'm more than most, but you can automate things, not just externally with clients, but you can automate things internally. Just notifications for CS, for sales, and like that.
Because again, something that I always see a lot of companies, I'm sure you see this as well, where they put a tool like HubSpot in place, right? And before you know it, they're adding 10 other marketing tools that if they actually just figured out how to use a tool like HubSpot properly, they wouldn't have had to put in these, 10 other tools. Right? I'm sure you see this all the time, right, with companies. How, again, a bit of a kind of left ball question, but how have you really made sure that you've kind of got the full capability out of HubSpot? Like, have you got like a dedicated team that just works on HubSpot? Just so kind of, I think, again, founders, they have the tendency to massively overspend on the stack, right? So like, yeah.
Well, it's a classic case of how you think you buy a tool and then it's going to solve the problem. You need to actually use the tool, right? I don't have a dedicated team myself, but I've made sure everyone in the senior marketing position in my department has knowledge of HubSpot to some degree.
Got it. Yeah.
Get buy-in from different perspectives of marketing itself. And then myself, I'm quite an expert on the tool at this point. I mean, I've been digging long nights.
Using it for ages.
I get regular emails about them saying I'm a top user and stuff. So I got quite a lot of knowledge myself. But I think having those kind of team leads that can back you up with that knowledge is quite key, because they will be able to tell you all right, my part of achieving the marketing strategy and the company strategy requires these tools. But since they know what HubSpot can do, they can inform me or the company as a whole, look, we can do 90% through HubSpot already. We don't need that other tool.
Yeah.
We're actually speaking to other departments as well, where we're like, did you know you can do that with HubSpot? So outside marketing as well, keep everything on one system as much as possible.
Yeah.
And also tell them, look, we can solve for your issues on the platform we're already on. So I think, how do you avoid overspending? Do your research, and make sure you have well-informed people in your business,
And not just in marketing, making sure that everyone in the business has an idea of what HubSpot can integrate with and how because it really is one of them platforms now that it can solve a lot of issues, not just in marketing, right?
Yeah.
Customer success, key point. And what have been some of them? Obviously, kind of HubSpot is that like centralized, location that kind of runs the inbound engine, right? But what have been some of the kind of other key softwares that you guys have put in place?
So in terms of key softwares that really stand out, Drift for me, massive. So HubSpot has their own chat tool, but when it came to chat, we made a decision to actually go with Drift, partly because they have a good integration with HubSpot, but they also have very, very powerful chat tools. They're specialists on that, right?
Yeah. Of course,
we are different with in terms of rotation of conversations, making sure that any conversation from a certain company, even before we identified a website visitor, goes to the same MDR. So we have MDRs and marketing development reps that make sure that anyone who chats with us get a response within 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But Drift works very well even if you don't have that set up. Very customizable bots, very powerful. Again, easy to grasp, but there's a lot of room to grow and become an expert and mold the platform to your needs. And I think that's the recommendation in general. When looking at buying a platform, make sure that it's easy enough to learn if you don't have a dedicated team of experts, but also make sure that there's enough scope there to build it out to fit your needs over time. So think a couple of years in advance. And I think that's what we did with Drift. A lot around, they have a clear bit integration, white label integration allows them to pick up on IPs. So you don't need people to even convert. People chatting with them will know what company they're from. They will know the information before they even really identify themselves, which helps them tailor the conversation and increase
from the get-go.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And I know, are you guys also using SalesLoft as well? Has that been like a kind of...
Yeah, we use SalesLoft as well. So again, HubSpot does have sales tools, but this was a conversation with sales, which also ties into buy-in, make sure it's give and take. It is a better tool for the time being for sales, in my opinion. You can create more custom cadences and you can automate things more in a way that professional salespeople would like. But thanks to our ops team, we're able to get all that data into HubSpot. So for us, we're still able to analyze everything, but we provide salespeople on the ground to get the most out of their work or make their own days more efficient, essentially.
Got it.
But SalesLoft is really powerful as well. They have a really good tool for analyzing demos and picking up on what conversations are being had. In many ways, a mini gong, so if you're not quite ready to have that pro leading tool for every single feature or sales enablement tech out there, SalesLoft allows you to do quite a bit in one package in a similar way that HubSpot does.
HubSpot is the marketing. Makes sense. Okay, makes sense. And I know we've already kind of touched on this a little bit with, kind of mentioning the overspending on the stack and, making sure that you're kind of getting the most out of the stack. But, let's say theoretically, right, we've got a new kind of B2B SaaS startup in a similar position, to you guys when you initially joined. What advice would you give, to that kind of size of business? So they're in them kind of early stages in terms of how they should be kind of thinking about the tech stack and kind of growing with that stack, if that makes sense.
So I've seen two different things happen in a lot of tech startups. Either they go too hardcore, they go for almost an enterprise software directly because it has capabilities, or they go almost too simple of a tool and they quickly outgrow it. So my consideration would be, think 2 years ahead. Where do you think you might need to be in 2 years' time? You don't have to pay a lot for a tool I go back to HubSpot, but a lot of these tools have really good discount for SaaS companies. So if you can find a tool that's easy to grasp, but you can grow with, like I said, and they have a discount, I'd go for that, More and more companies are trying the hub approach. HubSpot been building that for a while. I'm sure there's a lot of other good tools that potentially can do the same. But trying to get a tool that can satisfy a lot of your basic needs rather than get a lot of tools from the get-go. Always make sure you can integrate, right? Make sure there's a native integration between your tools, or that you have the resources accounted for in an ops team or agencies or consultants before you get a tool. Because people think about the monthly cost of a tool, but they don't think about the upkeep of that tool. So if you want to keep costs from spiraling away, and this happens quite a bit with specific tools I won't mention, but they get very costly very quickly because you can't do it yourself. You need almost a team to maintain them. You need an agency and consultancy. I make sure that the upkeep and maintenance isn't too bad with those tools as well.
Yeah, and I think it's such a key point there of finding that like a tool like HubSpot, right? That like you said satisfies a lot of them smaller needs, especially in those early stages, and a tool that you're going to be able to scale with 2 years from now, right? Rather than trying to glue 20 different tools together. I think it's a really important point, particularly for them kind of early stage businesses and early stage marketing teams. So yeah, completely agree. And I'd say over the last few years, we've started to see quite a big rise, right? Particularly within SaaS businesses of kind of CDPs, so platforms like Segment and Whole have become quite popular. So I'd be really interested just to kind of get your perspective on just how you think CDPs fit into the stack, and just really kind of how it can benefit a founder, or just again your perspective.
I mean, as your business grows, you're going to want to have the best in class tool for most of your activities. And once you get to that stage as a business, you're probably going to need a tool like Whole. We use Whole to kind of centralize and maintain the data across your platforms. As much as HubSpot and similar can allow you to get very far, and they have enterprise features, you're going to get to a stage where you do want some kind of data lake or some kind of centralization point, one way or another. For me, it's been a lot around product usage. So our CRM HubSpot isn't built to deal with product usage as good. So we use Whole as kind of a translator of data from Segment to better utilize product usage in our marketing campaigns. So it lines across your stack, what data's out there. You make sure you have the same for every platform. We have actually Salesforce as well for sales. With the HubSpot, we had Salesforce, and we still have that. In the past, even though there's a native integration, there's been some issues with data accuracy across the platforms. And when you're talking about big CRMs, that we have tens of thousands of contacts with a lot of properties happening, a lot of things happening, things happen and go wrong all the time. A Whole will allow you to just make sure that you have prioritization. So you have certain parts of your stack that are prioritized depending on what information you're looking at. So it's more likely that HubSpot will have marketing information that's correct. It's more likely Salesforce is going to have opportunity close data more correct. And then using Whole as a unifier has been quite powerful.
Unify point. And kind of again at that point on product usage, making sure that you're seeing that kind of full view of not just what's happening in the stage before they become a customer, right? But then how you take that product data to then inform the marketing team, the sales team. And I think it's a really, particularly with businesses that have them kind of free trial periods, I think it can become a really useful piece. I really agree.
Very useful for renewals as well. So in our business, marketing sticks around the whole life cycle. So we work a lot with success and account management, which sits with customer success in my business. Work a lot with them around what does onboarding look like? What message do you push out there? If you don't have that product usage data, which took us a long time to even have any access to without manually looking at it, it's going to be harder to understand how you keep people around. And the name of the game, lifetime value, in my opinion.
Keep people around.
Keep them around, right? It's not enough to close them and forget about them.
I completely agree. And to kind of wrap things up, right, on a kind of final tough question. There's never one answer to this, right? It's kind of just a tough question that I like to ask. And it's, if there was, again, from your perspective as a kind of head of marketing, what is that one metric for you that is just like vital for the health of the business, right? To be tracking, as again from a marketer's perspective, right? So something that you think is just a really, really important metric.
I think it depends on the maturity of your business, of course. So, it's
let's say at your stage. Let's say at your stage.
We're 100 people, right? We have 10 people in the marketing team. We've got some historic data, so we can start to do analysis on what's worked in the past and start to predict things. For us, pipeline generation, opportunity generation, that's the number one thing I look at. When I talk to the senior leadership team, that's the only thing I want to mention. I talk about leads as leading indicators, but at the end of the day, the key thing is opportunity generation and pipeline generation.
And for new business. Why is that?
Because at the end of the day, we're there to generate money, generate revenue. I think a lot of marketers forget that. And I think the most successful marketers are going to be the ones that remember that and make sure that that's what they're talking to the rest of the senior management group about. That's how you get buy-in. So we talked about buying earlier. If you talk about pipeline generation and opportunity generation, you're going to get more people listening. You're going to have a lot more punchy conversations, that's my key takeaway. I would even say revenue, to be honest, and some marketers go that far. It depends on how much integration there is between sales and marketing. So if you basically have a marketing team, then I would go even for like close won revenue for new biz. We're currently looking at renewals with the customer success team as well, but that's a tougher one because they're already customers. It's a little bit tougher to analyze if you created that opportunity or it just automatically was created because they were in contract. But for new biz, pipeline, opportunity generation for sure.
Got it. Yeah, I still think there's far too many marketers. I agree that look at the kind of vanity metrics right across the funnel. They focus far too much on still things like MQLs, right, and things like SQLs, and then kind of silly numbers to be tracking really that don't really mean anything. And I think that the more we can start focusing on, like you said, revenue generated, like what is this actually generating, I think is the bigger question.
And there's a place for those metrics as well within the
lead indicators.
As we analyze things ourselves. If you're an early stage business, like really early, haven't been around for more than a year, there's an element of looking at those things because you don't have historic data. It's very hard to talk about opportunities in pipeline and then come up with insights if you have nothing to base it on in the past.
So it's something in them very early days that is like you said, a bit of a leading indicator that kind of allows you to know if you're going in the right direction, right? But ultimately, go ahead.
Once you have the ICPs, you have all that sorted out. I think you have maybe a year or two of data, then you should definitely be moving over the pipeline and opportunity direction.
Makes sense. Well, look, Max, it's been really, really awesome having you on the show. I've really, really enjoyed this conversation, talking everything stacks and just, kind of how you guys have grown over the last few years. Been a super, super interesting conversation. Hope you enjoyed coming on. Yeah,
it was great. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, guys, look, I will see you on the next episode of the CDP Growth Show. See ya.